everyone, I'm Amy,
And I'm Audrea.
and this is the Right Crowd. So grab a cup of coffee,
Or your tea.
maybe a little something on the rocks, and let's get started. All right, Audrea, this is one of our bonus videos. And in this video, we are going to be discussing conferences and classes, because who doesn't love a good conference and class?
That's true.
So I'm going to let you take it away, and I will interject because you are the conference and class queen. So I will hold back all my words on this one and let you take it away.
I won't say that I'm the queen. I would say I probably have a problem that I need to have professional assistance with, because this past year
You need a support group?
I need a support group. I signed up for classes that, because it was like they were on sale. Let me just tell you guys off the back, the sale come back around. And it's not a good deal if you don't have time to do the class, or they're overlapping each other and it's just stressful, and yeah. So
Yeah, and if you have classes where they're you only have the week, or maybe that week and the next week you have access, then it's like, wait a minute. But
Yeah.
Those classes, my problem is that I'm like, oh, I have it for a year, sure, and then I signed up for it, totally forgetting I had it, and then by the time I remember, it expired yesterday.
Yeah, I hate that.
So yeah, that's my problem.
That's terrible, and that can happen. So what I suggest for people is that you make a list. Make a list of, and this is the nerd, the geek in me with the spreadsheets and things talking. I make a list of all the conferences that look interesting to me. I put down their dates, and I should probably share my screen, but I put down, actually I will, I think, because we are recording this, you guys can, I'll share my screen briefly. This is what I have in my Evernote. So this is just for the 2021 and 2022. So I have a list of things that I was thinking about with a question mark, and ones that are online only. And we'll talk about that, and ones that are in person, or they're both, but I've been told that you get the most out of the in person. And so I make a list, and then I go through and see where there's some conflicts, like doing too many in June would be a problem for me, or there are a few that are the same week in October, and so forth. So I'm going to turn this off and go back to my screen. So I make a list, and sometimes I use a spreadsheet, but of all the conferences I want to go to and why. For example, I need to develop my skill. So I need to go to conferences where it's about craft. So there are lots of different types of conferences, and let's start with that first. There are conferences that are for readers and authors, and they try to cater to both. And in those kinds of conferences, they're fun, especially because most authors are readers. But you get to meet your fans if you have any.
Which you will all have some at some point.
That's right.
We'll all have all kinds of fans.
Yes.
And it won't just be our moms and our brothers.
I should have stacked up some of my books. I have one of the book. So there are conferences that are for readers and writers. There are conferences that are strictly craft conferences and are just for authors. There are conferences for authors at different levels. For example, NINC, National
Novelists Incorporated.
Novelists Incorporated. Thank you. You have to be a published author making a certain income before you can join NINC. And then even Mystery Writers of America has different levels. They have like a participating level, they have a professional level, and so forth. So there are conferences for different levels of author, and there are conferences for different genres. I have gone to BoucherCon, which is a conference for readers and writers, and it's strictly around mysteries and thrillers. That's what BoucherCon is. That's who it caters to. And here's a happy note. I was able to meet one of my favorite authors at BoucherCon.
Okay, so who'd you meet?
I met Charlene Harris.
I'm not familiar with her. So what does she write?
She writes lots of things. She writes the Aurora Tea Garden Mysteries. Those are cozy mysteries about a librarian, and then which are so adorable, and they're on the Hallmark Movies and Mysteries channel.
Okay.
So they're the books, and now she's on that TV. And then these are my favorite. This is where I was introduced to her. They are the Sookie Stackhouse Mysteries, and Sookie Stackhouse is a woman who has a little bit of telepathy. So these would fall into paranormal cozies, but they were more, actually they wouldn't fall into cozies. They were maybe paranormal mystery fiction, but they're fun. They're super fun. And these actually got picked up and were made into a television show on HBO called True Blood.
I know the show. Oh, I don't watch. I don't have HBO. I don't have cable. I have Roku, and all I watch on there is Amazon Prime. So, however, I know the show True Blood, and I may have to pick that up. I just recently, in the last year and a half, even learned what a cozy was. So,
I should take that back. I call them cozies because you return to the same town, the same characters. They're quirky and they're funny, and it's amateur sleuth, Sookie Stackhouse, who I love that name, Sookie. Okay. So you return. So I think of them as cozies, but there are curse words and there's sex on the page.
That is not a cozy.
So yeah, they would not qualify as a cozy. So I take that back, but they are gosh darn good. And so I fangirled out a little bit on Miss Charlene. But Harlan Coben was there. I'm also a fan of Harlan Coben, and he writes some mysteries. He writes Tell No One, which is his famous one, and he writes a mystery series about a sports agent who solves murders and mysteries. And they are so well written. Love the Harlan movie books. He is an excellent author, and he's super tall. My gosh, he's tall. So anyway, so then those are the ones that are for writers and readers, and then there are ones that are, like I said, just craft, where you learn the craft, and you can learn mystery writing. You can learn romance writing. Romance Writers of America usually has the biggest conference, where people come from all over the world to go to that conference. And BoucherCon is a little bit like that. And then the one that you and I did together, Thriller Fest.
Yes, that was great, because the thing I liked about that one, first of all, it was totally online.
Mm-hmm.
Watch it whenever we wanted to watch it. But they had like successful authors on there giving you how they do whatever the topic was. Before I started writing my middle grade fantasy and my sci-fi, people died in everything that I wrote. So it like made sense for me to be like listening to what they have to say, because that was where my focus was. My focus isn't there right now. So I don't know that Thriller Fest would be something I would redo this year, like in 2022, because that's not my focus for this year. And it was really good information and totally online. I did it in my jammies.
And the reason I read some thrillers, but I have a thriller in my brain sort of for a future book. But the reason I went to this is because I asked other authors that I met, what's the best conference for craft? If you really want to learn the craft. And many authors, hands down, said Thriller Fest, whether or not you are a thriller writer. They said for craft classes, that is their forte for Thriller Fest. So even if I guess you're right, romance is all out, there's romantic suspense. For craft and the caliber of authors they get.
Yes.
It is really top notch. And that's another thing that you want to evaluate when you are evaluating conferences, whether the authors that they have teaching the classes. So you want to look through their events or their listing of classes and see if any of that is something that you need. Like maybe they have one on premises or how to write a premise. Maybe they have one on how to write for Hollywood if you want to turn your book into a screenplay or something like that.
That would be so cool. I think we both in the back of our minds are like,
Yeah.
yes, please.
Yes, which is probably why we chose, we've done a review of the John Truby book, because he's
Yes.
a master screenwriter and consultant. You want to evaluate who's going to be there, the caliber of authors, the kinds of classes, the number of days. Of course, it has to work into your schedule. And if it's going to be recorded, if it's streaming. These days, we also have to determine whether we have to think about health and safety when it comes to going to a conference in person, even if it's even available in person.
Yeah.
So you have to think about travel costs and expenses for hotel stays and so forth, and getting around. Those are the things you have to evaluate. But more than that, of course, it's the kind of conference and what you're going to learn. For example, in the next year, when I'm looking at conferences, other than just mystery conferences, I want to go to ones where I learn to better marketing and publishing, or things about publishing. And I am enrolled in Sarah Cannon's Publish and Thrive this year, because this is the first year I'll be putting out a book. My first book is coming out this year, but I know that I want to get better at the business of writing. So those are the kinds of conferences or classes that I'm going to be looking at next year. So those are some things you want to evaluate when you look at conferences. And even if conferences are all online, you have to think about, like Amy said, the schedule, whether they overlap, whether you have time to devote, if you can get time off work, because just paying that much money to just take one or two classes and then you don't have recordings is probably not going to be worth it for you. There are some conferences that only happen over a weekend, which is nice. So you can schedule those in with your family and so forth. And let's see, what was the other thing? Even if you get the recordings, if you don't have time to watch the recordings before recordings go away, like Amy said, it's probably not going to be worth the expense. So those are some of the things you think about.
You also have to keep in mind, okay, so it's a week long, but they're back-to-back sessions, and you're going to be in sessions all day long. Even though you're sitting in your seat all day, you're going to be worn out at the end of your brain can only take so much input. And if you're like me and you're an introvert, even if you're like by yourself in a room, that's still a lot of not interaction, like real interaction, but at the end of the day, you're just spent. So it's almost kind of like when people say they have to take a vacation from their vacation. Like some of these conferences, even when they're online, you need to take into account that you might need a day off at the end. Yeah. So you best. So does that 5-day conference for you really mean you need 6 days? Mm-hmm. Or you can jump right into it and take it all in, and you don't need time to review what you've just learned. You don't need time to go back and rewatch something because it was so much information. So how you best learn and how you best. For me, I need to hear it, I need to see it, I need to write it. Mm-hmm. So I always, my husband and I joke that my office, when he needs something, I just tell him to come to my store because I have all the things. But I don't go anywhere without a notepad. And these little tiny notepads, that doesn't work for me. I have to have, the 8.5 by 11, big spiral bound, whatever. Because for me, when I'm rewatching something, I need to be reading my notes at the same time so that I can get all the information, right? So make sure that if you're one of those people and you're not able to watch it the first time and take notes, you need to watch it. Make sure you take time and put in your schedule time to go back and rewatch the ones that you're allowed to rewatch so that you're able to get your notes down. Sometimes it's not just 4 days of a conference. You've got to know how you best need to set your time aside.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to, whether or not if you're going to the conference, you want to make sure you have comfortable clothing. You have a jacket. Some of those conference rooms are chilly. That air is icy cold. So you want to make sure
And
that
if you don't know if it's going to be, take something.
yeah,
It's better to take something and not need it than have to pay $50 for the conference sweatshirt because you're so cold you can't hear anything because your teeth are chattering.
yeah.
So
It's distracting. Being that uncomfortable is distracting. So do that. I always make sure I have notebooks. Sometimes when they let you, and most of them do, I try to record them, but I found that even when I'm recording them on a device, I very rarely do I remember, because which of all the 5 hours of recordings, which one was the class. So notebooks, I always have notebooks and pens when I go, and a bag. Sometimes at some of them you get swag, which is nice. You get a little bag, and my bags are over there. I forgot to get them out, but you get bags that you can put your things in and go from room to room, conference room to conference room, which is nice. So where do you find conferences? Well, you can find them. Go to Mr. and Mrs. Google, Professor Google, and ask them about writing conferences. And
because Mr. Google knows everything.
Yes, Mr. Google does. If you read any of these writing magazines, and I have some old ones back here, a lot of them will list the conferences for the year, and they'll have at the beginning of the year, they have for all the year, because a lot of these are reoccurring, like Thriller Fest and so forth. And then or they'll have the ones that are happening in the next month or so. So a lot of the writing magazines are great places to find out. And then of course online, and then asking other authors. And there's that app that we talk about, we mention occasionally, Clubhouse. And on Clubhouse, you can find out about conferences. And they, for example, they were talking about 20 books to 50K, one of the conferences coming up this year. I've seen that one online, and well, it comes up every year, but you can also ask other authors, is it worth it? Which is nice. It's really nice to be able to say, so what did you get out of that? Was it worth it? And you get honest answers. Like, if you're going to spend your money on, this is a topic that happened in the Clubhouse room. If you're going to spend your money on one conference this year, and you had to choose, what I would choose, I believe it was, well, if you can go to NAEC, but some of us beginner authors can't go to NAEC, but
don't qualify.
Yeah, but 20 books to 50K is one that comes up as consistently worth it. And they do an online, virtual or streaming version, as well as an in-person version. So that's where you find out about some of these conferences. Google, ask about it. Look in writing organizations, they'll have them listed. Almost every state has one. Some of the universities have extension courses. And you and I went to one virtually together. It was the Florida Writers Association.
Yes, and that one was really good. Because it wasn't just here's someone speaking, they had a lot of panels. So you get everyone's opinion of what's going on, and it was virtual. So we were both able to do it from our respective houses and still do the conference together. And that one you had access to the material later as well. So that one was good. And it wasn't expensive.
Yeah.
It wasn't expensive.
It was reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one other thing that you can do is when you look at the panels or the authors that are going to appear, that's one way we talked about to evaluate. But if there's a particular author and you want to know if you want to hear what they have to say about writing romance or thrillers or whatever, go to their webpage and look in their events and calendars, and they will often list where they're appearing. It's usually at a conference or speaking at a library or something like that. So that's another way to find good conferences to go to. I forgot to mention one other that's near and dear to my heart is the Writers Police Academy. This one is fun because you actually get to do, you can probably see that on the back, you actually get to do the things like shoot the guns and hear real cops talk about what they do in a steakhouse and get to ride in a police car and do things like that. So there are ones that are more action oriented. So that was a fun one. I got to go to that once.
So what they do at a steakhouse or stakeout?
Steakhouse? Oh my gosh, did I say steak? I think I might be hungry. You get to hear about steakhouse.
I mean, my dad and my brother are both cops, and I can tell you what they do at a steakhouse. They eat some steak.
That's hilarious. Okay, so let's here's a tip. I went to the VoucherCon where they have a room full of books, all of the new books that are coming out from all of the authors, and you get to take a book away or buy books or whatever. I came home with a stack of books and I couldn't even get them in my suitcase. I had to media mail ship some of them. Yeah, did I mention I might have a problem? Stack.
That just reminds me, I'm actually driving to the Vegas conference, which means I don't have to worry about that.
Oh, you were so lucky. You're so lucky. All
Okay.
right. So we have talked about what kinds of conferences. We've talked about how to find conferences. We've talked about how to prepare for conferences and in comfortable clothing. Check and see if they have a dinner, because you might want dinner wear, or wear what you're comfortable in. That's what I believe, no matter what kind of event it is. If it's black tie and you want to wear your pajamas and fuzzy slippers, do it. Just do you.
I don't know that black tie is the place to do that, but you know, whatever.
Also, one other thing about online
and budgeting. Make sure that's the other thing you keep in mind.
Yes.
Because even though the conference may only be $200, if it's virtual, fine. But if you have to like go to Vegas, are you flying? Do you have to get a hotel? All your meals out? It's not like you can just walk into your kitchen in the middle of the room and, you know, so make sure you keep budgeting in mind too. Okay, go ahead.
And one last thing that I was going to say was that, for online conferences, there are lots of free ones that are available that are really good quality. For example, Clubhouse, there's a room called the Author Conference, and they do a morning chat every morning. But they also do periodically a conference over the weekend, and they have really good panelists come in and talk about how to set up a newsletter for authors and how to do different Amazon ads for authors. That is free. And then I always forget how to pronounce her name. It's Tamara Woods. She's an author tuber, so she's on YouTube like us, and she has an author conference where she has panels and they are free to attend. So look for some of those things as well, and they usually work into your budget if you can work them into your schedule.
Yes, I like all those things.
Yes.
The only one that you didn't mention that I'm going to this year, because it happens to be in the same general area and around the same general time as Vegas, is I'm going to Kanab Writers Conference in Utah.
Yeah.
And it's the week before, and it starts out with a hike in the canyons, and you get a couple of hours to just sit in the canyons and write. So I am when I go to that one and I write in the canyon, I'm actually not taking a work in progress. I'm just going to see what comes out.
Ooh, that sounds
so
awesome.
That could be good or bad. We'll find out. Maybe I should take my other stuff, something just in case. I'm sitting there brain dead.
I'm sure you'll be inspired.
So that's I have nothing to add. You did a great job.
Yep, that's all that. We didn't even get to classes. We'll have to do another video just on classes. Similar things to those things that you think about. So I don't think I have anything else for conferences other than conferences are fun. Oh, I have one more thing.
Oops, go ahead.
Whether it's online, well, it's more difficult when it's an online or virtual conference, but if you go in person, I have heard, and even though I've been to many conferences in person, I can only give you hearsay because I have heard that one of the best things about an in-person conference is the author networking. So getting to know other authors, chat with them, find out their experiences with things. So I've heard from numerous authors that is the best part. And even at this NINC that I've never been to, they talk about the tiki bar where they learn things, they learn how to do things offline, basically, in that networking session. I can say that I can only, even though I've been to conferences in person, I can only tell you hearsay because I'm a severe introvert and I don't really talk to people. I try to avoid talking to people, and I am usually the one curled up in the corner in the fetal position with a book.
So 20 books, I can tell you 20 books has, I don't know how many opportunities for authors to get together in between and after, and like they have a spreadsheet for meetups with authors. I think I've originally signed up for like 5. I'm down to 3 because yeah, the thing is that Audrey and I will be going to this together, which means we will be together curled up in the corner, not talking to anybody. Because okay, so here's my difference. If I am in charge, you would never know I was an introvert. I make sure everyone's included. I talk to everybody. I give all the information. Like if I'm the one that's in charge of part of the leadership team, you would never know that I was an introvert. If I am a participant, and especially if I'm a participant and nobody knows that I'm normally the leader, you will get probably nothing out of me. I will probably just be sitting there, because the other part of that is I hate being wrong. So I would hate for someone to ask my opinion on something or ask me how to do something, and it be different from what the person who's leading the group. So I would be like, oh, you know what? I'm not sure. You should go ask that person. Yeah. I like defer. So yeah, you might see me somewhere and I'm going to be like Audrea. I'll be in the corner with a book or a notepad. I'm the person that will grab their phone to look at it, even though I'm not looking at anything, because I don't want people to talk to me.
I pretend it rang. Didn't you hear it ring? I gotta go.
Oh, sorry. I got to get this real quick. Yeah.
So I say that, so if you ever see us or other authors at a conference, many authors are introverted. So don't take offense if they run away. It's not you, it's them. It's me.
And it doesn't necessarily mean they don't want to talk to you. They just don't want to approach you. Yeah. I tell my friends, I want to be invited to the party. I don't want to go to the party, but I want to be invited to the party. I want to know that you wanted me there.
Yes.
So even though there's someone in the corner, they might be like, oh, someone's talking to me. Yes, please. They just don't want to be the person to go up to, because another thing about being an introvert is you don't want to be the rejected. Like that's the thing. So you just sit over there so no one can reject you.
Yes. So, yeah. What is that call? Battle cry? Introverts unite separately in your own homes.
Tomorrow.
All right, that's it for conferences. I can't think of anything else. If you have questions, put them in the show notes or reach out.
Toodles.